They say neighborhood security is meant to keep you safe. But what happens when the very people hired to protect your family become the greatest threat? For David Whitaker, a quiet homeowner who just wanted peace, everything changed the night. A community security guard cornered his daughter on their own driveway. A gun was drawn, lives were seconds from ending. But the guard had no idea who he was dealing with because David's daughter wasn't just anybody. She was a highly trained FBI tactical commander. And what happened next shocked the entire neighborhood. David Whitaker had lived in Oakwood Estates for nearly a decade. The gated community was picture-perfect with its manicured lawns, pastel-colored homes, and HOA board obsessed with rules. David was a widower in his late 50s, a soft-spoken man who worked in finance and liked his life predictable. His daughter, Rachel Whitaker, visited often, especially since she had transferred back to the region for work. At 32, Rachel was disciplined, sharp-eyed, and physically fit, her presence commanding even in silence. Few in Oakwood Estates knew what she did for a living, and she preferred it that way. The HOA and its hired private security force had recently begun cracking down ticketing cars for improper parking, issuing fines for noisy gatherings, even harassing teenagers walking home at night. Most residents rolled their eyes but complied. David, however, noticed how aggressive the new guards had become. He warned Rachel one evening, joking that the community felt more like a military base than a neighborhood. She had smirked but said little, keeping her professional life sealed off from her father's casual complaints. But one late Friday night, when Rachel stopped by after work, Oakwood Estates' so-called security would push too far. And their mistake would ignite a storm no one could control. The tension started small. Rachel parked her black SUV in her father's driveway and carried a duffel bag of files inside. Within minutes, a security patrol SUV pulled up with its floodlight aimed at the driveway. The guard inside, Carl Henson, mid-40s, stocky, with a shaved head and permanent scowl, stepped out. Carl had earned a reputation for being overzealous. He barked at delivery drivers, hassled landscapers, and once threatened to tow a resident's car during a child's birthday party. Most avoided him. Tonight, though, he had found Rachel. He demanded to know why she was there, claiming her vehicle wasn't registered with the HOA. Rachel calmly explained it was her father's house and she was visiting. That should have ended things, but Carl pressed harder, circling her car with a flashlight as though searching for contraband. Rachel warned him he was overstepping. Inside the house, David watched nervously from the window. He debated stepping outside, but Rachel's body language was composed, steady. She wasn't rattled, though the guard clearly wanted her to be. Eventually, Carl left with a warning about unregistered visitors and reporting this to the board. David thought it was over. Rachel suspected it was only beginning. The next week, Carl and the security team escalated. They left citations on David's door claiming parking violations and non-compliance. When Rachel returned again, Carl parked across the street, glaring. One evening, when she walked her father's dog, Carl's SUV crawled behind her like a predator stalking prey. Rachel kept her cool, but David grew furious. He tried calling the HOA president, Linda Barrett, a woman in her 50s with a reputation for micromanaging the entire neighborhood. Linda dismissed him coldly, insisting the guards were just doing their job. But then came the night that changed everything. It was a humid summer evening. David was inside, preparing tea. Rachel had stepped out to her SUV to grab her work phone. That's when Carl made his move. He pulled his security SUV across the driveway, blocking her vehicle. Rachel froze, her instincts alert. Carl got out, hand already on his holster. "You don't belong here this late," he barked. "Step away from the vehicle." Rachel calmly identified herself as the homeowner's daughter. But Carl wasn't listening. His hand went to his weapon. From inside, David saw the metallic glint of a gun. Panic surged through him. He rushed to the door, shouting, but Rachel raised a hand for him to stay back. Carl drew his weapon, and then Neighbourhood, silent under the dim glow of streetlights, held its breath. Rachel's eyes locked on the barrel pointed at her chest. Years of training surged forward. She knew Carl wasn't law enforcement. He was a rent-a-cop with no legal right to detain her on private property. Still, a drawn gun meant seconds mattered. In a voice calm but firm, she spoke. "You need to lower that weapon." "Right now," Carl sneered. "Or what, you gonna call Daddy?" That was his fatal mistake. Rachel's stance shifted, her tone cutting like steel. "No, I'm Special Agent Rachel Whitaker, FBI Tactical Operations. You are pointing a firearm at a federal officer. Drop it now." Carl froze, shock flickering across his face, but ego is dangerous. Instead of lowering the weapon, he shouted that she was lying. His hand trembled on the trigger. Rachel acted. In one fluid motion, she sidestepped, disarmed him with a swift wrist lock, and sent the gun skidding across the pavement. Carl stumbled, cursing. Rachel held him face down on the hood of his own SUV, her knee on his shoulder blade. By now, porch. Lights flicked on up and down the street. Neighbors peeked through blinds, phones recording. David stood rooted in shock, both terrified and awestruck. Rachel called it in, her voice steady as she requested immediate local law enforcement backup. Within minutes, patrol cars swarmed Oakwood Estates. Officers took Carl into custody while Rachel showed her credentials. Then he boars, wide-eyed, whispered to each other. The quiet man's daughter was no ordinary visitor. She was a federal commander. The OA board members arrived in a panic, demanding explanations, but the damage was done. Everyone had seen Carl threaten an unarmed resident with deadly force. Everyone had seen Rachel dismantle him without hesitation. The illusion of security control was shattered. Carl was charged with multiple offenses, brandishing a firearm, unlawful detention, and reckless endangerment. His security license was revoked permanently. The company that employed him was hit with lawsuits, not only from Rachel, but from other residents emboldened by the incident. Linda, Barrett, and the OA board scrambled to save face, but the truth spread faster than their excuses. Videos of the confrontation circulated online. Neighbor, who had once felt powerless, now had proof of the board's negligence and abuse. Residents petitioned to remove Linda and her allies from the board, and within months, the HOA leadership collapsed under the weight of scandal. For David, the aftermath was bittersweet. He had nearly lost his daughter that night, but he also gained new respect for the strength she carried, not just as his child, but as a protector of justice. Rachel urged him not to dwell on the what-ifs, but instead on the fact that the abuse of power had been stopped. Oakwood Estates changed. After that night, the guards were gone, replaced with basic patrol cameras and volunteer and HORB watch groups. For the first time in years, the community felt safe, not because of intimidation, but because residents took back their voice. Rachel returned. Often, greeted now with admiration, neighbor would nod respectfully, some whispering thanks for what she had exposed. David no longer felt like just another pawn under HOA control. He felt free. And though Rachel rarely spoke of her work, that one night revealed everything people needed to know. Power can be abused in the quietest streets. But when truth finally stands its ground, no board, no badge, and no false authority can silence it.
This was just one story, but the next one will be even more dramatic. Are you ready? Then you need to subscribe to HOA Stories 87 right now. Like this video, share it with your friends, and hit the bell because the next story might sound a little too close to home.